Welcome to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar with Denise Straiges and Alastair Gray. This homeopathy podcast is the hot spot for the curious, the questioning, and the committed. You belong here, among the strange, rare, and the beautifully peculiar truths, everything you need to know about homeopathy.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good after nap.
And good after nap. It was a great nap.
Good after nap.
And good evening.
Boy, it is. I woke up from my nap and I said, what's it about 1 o'clock?
2:30.
2:30. At a certain point, it's not a nap.
Oh, that was a afternoon snooze fest.
Today's the day after Thanksgiving.
It's a hot second since we were with you last, and I have just
got a pot of tea
for the naughty vicar.
So I think we need to talk about something. I didn't clear this with you ahead of time.
What?
Can you make a confession, please?
Can I?
What happened yesterday?
No idea. It's blur.
Okay.
The whole thing is a blur.
Okay, actually, here, let me have
Wait, you want to do this publicly?
Because I'm over it now. And I think that anyone, the fact that you aren't in bits and buried in various parts of the garden. Okay, so yesterday, Thanksgiving, for those of you who are maybe not here in America, where it's the food holiday of thanks. It is a holiday where there is a feast that is prepared, and a lot goes into the preparation of
small thing. It's a very small thing.
So yesterday, about 10 o'clock in the morning, on Thanksgiving Day, I was having a cup of coffee at the dining room table. And you said what to me?
Good morning, my love.
Yes, continue.
And then I said something along the lines of, we should probably be taking stuff out of the freezer by now, right?
No, you said, would you like me to take the
would you like me to take the things out of the
turkey
freezer?
out of the freezer? I said, you're kidding. I thought he has to be kidding because it's 10 o'clock. We had big heavy thing that now is frozen. And I said, you're kidding. And you said,
No.
Not kidding.
Not kidding. Thing in freezer, like you asked me to put it in the freezer.
I did not ask such a thing.
Saturday, 5 days before.
Right, so fair enough.
Thinking food hygiene thoughts here.
So we went to the farmer's market, as we do on any given Saturday, and on this Saturday there was a special trip because it was the day you pick up the turkey fresh. A fresh turkey. It never would have occurred to me. I mean, I get it now after I've cried a lot. No. But it was quite a moment to find out that the turkey that we were to have for dinner and the turkey parts that were being made into a stock for a special soup for an event tomorrow, all frozen. Anyway.
And the noise, the hollering.
There was no hollering.
There was hollering.
I didn't raise my voice. Did I? No. Anyway,
the cats are still,
for those of you,
scattered to the wind.
So I went to Whole Foods Market, and thankfully there was a turkey, but we had to get a whole one. Because it was just a small group yesterday. But anyway, I told the woman at the checkout, I said, yeah, I'm buying this turkey because the fresh turkey I bought from the farm has been put in the freezer and didn't tell me. And she stopped everything she was doing and she just looked like, oh, I'm really sorry. Anyway.
I wonder about that. I mean, I am surprised you have started with that story.
Are you?
But I think we should poll it. And so, does it make perfect sense, gentlemen or ladies?
Yeah.
Does it make perfect sense to you? Does it make logical sense to you to buy something on a Saturday morning for the eating on a Thursday and you put it in the fridge?
Ordinarily.
Or the assumption that you put it in the fridge?
Ordinarily, I would say that you would be correct because it's the freshness of it. And the fact that, like, we've driven out to the farm to pick up the turkey on the Wednesday, the day before.
Well, we have done that in the past.
Yeah, it's the same turkey.
There's something about fresh because you can have fresh frozen.
Yeah, we had a lot of barriers to the conversation. Anyway, luckily
The barriers,
I was able to buy another
you
turkey.
got a little defensive. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm over it.
Just a little defensive. He's over it.
It
Oh,
was something though, because there was this moment
the
of
hollering. Oh my God.
I really didn't holler. I wish you didn't say that because I don't really raise my voice. I get a tone. I definitely get a tone, but I don't raise my voice. Anyway,
We'll put it this way.
I continued to say
it got
everything in
bad.
English. I was what I said was I don't want to solve any problems today. That was the thing.
Yeah.
It like required an entire news editing. Anyway, it was pretty funny. I just think that for all the people just for anyone who maybe had a moment, like maybe you burned something on Thanksgiving or, some, excuse me, some sort of debacle happened.
Some minor indiscretion.
That was ours. But it turned out to be fine. It turned out to be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was actually a good turkey at Whole Foods. I didn't want a market turkey because we had gotten it, but it turned out they had a farm turkey.
It was expensive.
Whatever. It was ridiculous. But okay, here we go. So that's
got that out of the way. Holy. So what did you teach this week? Oh wait, you didn't.
There was
because there was Thanksgiving. What did I teach? Nothing. It's been a holiday.
All right. We'll see you.
See you later.
See you later. Okay. We are here with
there was a question. We're here because of one of our listeners. God bless you, from the land down under. That's New Zealand. That fine country.
Yeah.
And the question was, can you talk about posology? It's like,
oh yeah.
Are you kidding?
Oh yeah.
Can you talk about posology? And I think there was a couple of references to some articles that have been, or some not even articles, some posts, I think, some social media posts that have been littering the have been peppering the airwaves about the use of specifically Fibonacci and Homochords.
Yes.
And the question was, can you weigh on in? And the answer is try and stop us.
Yeah. So
So
the thing is that
buckle up.
Buckle up. Well, it's interesting because if you listened to last week's episode, which by the way, I have to apologize because we were sitting across from each other and I was looking at Alice and I'm like this the entire time. Now we've moved to a different location.
Once again, your feedback would be really useful. Because I find myself kind of talking to you there, but you're not, you're there.
I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do both. This whole thing, we've been told that we need to do it on video, and I have a red nose, but it was from laughing and drinking hot tea. So, cheers. Okay. If you listened last time, we were talking about a variety of things, including the decimal potency. I've really been thinking a lot about that. Have you? I think one of the things I was thinking most about is that I was surprised at how often you prescribed it. You prescribed decimal potencies back in the day.
In the early third of my practice, a sixth, about a sixth.
I mean, that's a lot, and nobody died, ostensibly.
No.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's important just to note that, like, there are points of distinction, and there are, here's what I came to. Nobody died. So there are a couple of points of distinction that I think are really important because, look, at the end of the day, if what we're talking about is sort of best practice, safety, like what, and also, season 4 is about truth. And so this idea of truth is around, like, what is homeopathy and what can we do safely? So at the end of the day, if we're talking about the decimal potency and you've got one substance, or I was thinking about how
the decimal potency.
Yeah,
he never once would have entered my pointy little head that was not a part of the evolution of Hahnemannian homeopathy. And so it was a surprise to hear that it is herring and only herring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
That also doesn't mean much to me.
it depends on how you're asking the question, right? Because there are ways in which the Herring Hahnemann, bromance is totally fine. And then there are ways in which Herring goes totally rogue. And you sort of have to pick what's the question that you're asking and why?
Well, Herring went rogue after Hahnemann's death.
He was going rogue before. You don't think Sorin was going rogue? He was trying to do.
No, I don't.
We didn't go into detail on this because in 1830 we talked about sorinum, right? He introduced the substance, he called it Sorin, and I think in the podcast we kind of alluded to it being a Soric workaround. I think it's just important to note that, like, here in Hahnemann introduces chronic diseases in 1828, the Soric disease being at the root of all disease, and the unraveling of the Soric disease or of chronic disease. I mean, it comes to it, it's aphorism 171. 171, hold it, where Hahnemann is talking about how here in chronic diseases that are not venereal, therefore those most usually arising from psora, one often needs to employ several anti-psoric remedies in succession to bring about a cure, each to be homeopathically selected in accordance with the results of an examination of the group of symptoms that remain after the previous means has completed its action. And I think that is...
Dear listener, Denise just multitasked as she was actually wrestling with a cat as well.
Hildegard of Bingen was on my lap, but I'm wearing a fancy skirt and I didn't want her on my lap. Anyway, and I'm also using not my Organon. I'm using an Organon from the thing, so I don't have...
What are you reading? Not my Organon.
Not my Organon, because I have mine. I know where everything is because I have my stickies and I have it set. Anyhow, it doesn't
So
matter.
why are you reading this 171?
Because 171, I think it's important when we talk about, like, Herring. I think with the introduction of Sorin, he thought he was gonna he was pushing this idea of isopathy. He was pushing it to name the substance after Hahnemann's, the deepest part of chronic disease theory. I think is kind of
found himself a nice...
Can you say move? Can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
Can I?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally. No, because they're listening down south. They'll expect it.
I said it's a baller move for Herring to have done that, but I feel like maybe you're not supposed to say
Translation would be ballsy move.
Yeah. And not, but
balls
like
to the wall.
Yeah, but like not in a good way, like in a puffing up the chest kind of a way.
Oh, okay.
I think. And anyway, and then there's more to it though. But like when you're making a call, like, everything can't be perfect in the world, and you sort of accept, the turkey from Whole Foods as opposed to the one you got from the farm, and you get on with your day. I'm kidding you.
One of the other, because there's a subtext here, because I think where you're going with this is that, Herring is, poking Hahnemann and saying, look what I'm doing over here.
Yep.
Well, there's some energy coming both ways. In 1830, I think it's going to be 1838, after the Allentown Academy had closed, Herring and Jacques Jean received a letter from Hahnemann saying,
please, sir,
please, could you send us some diplomas? I'd like one for my wife.
My goodly wife.
My goodly wife.
My goodly wife would need a diploma.
Who's practicing medicine without a license, and it would be lovely if you could send us one. And there's in the Faces of Homeopathy, that brilliant book by Julian Winston, a copy of the names of diplomas that were written by the school after the school had closed, including one to Berninghausen.
Yeah.
Including one to now I need the page, but it's Madame Hahnemann, Berninghausen, and then there is a physician in Naples. It's something in Italy, Necker in Italy, and the list goes on. And I don't know, like what I'm just saying is that,
like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back.
Yeah, and some pretty shabby educational practices.
Well, I mean, okay, but so
just saying.
But Hahnemann was not necessarily always enamored of this. And so in the footnote to 56, aphorism 56 in the 6th edition of the Organon, and I refer to this all the time, but I'm just going to read one thing where Hahnemann goes right to the heart of it with Herring, and this continues on from what we talked about last week about vaccination, right? Anyway, he says, in this way, to be sure, certain other animal diseases will present us with medicinal and curative potencies. So in other words, nosodes, right? For very similar important human diseases, happily supplementing our stock of homeopathic medicines. Okay. So he said, nosode good.
Nosode good.
But wanting to cure a human disease, e.g., the itch diathesis, or maladies arisen therefrom, in other words, psora, the itch diathesis being psora, with an identical human disease matter, e.g., with a psoricum taken from the itch diathesis. This is Herring's actual thing that he thought he did.
And what does he think about that?
He says, it is going too far, exclamation
Too
point.
far.
Nothing results
You
from
should.
it.
Too far.
Nothing results from it but calamity and aggravation of the disease.
Yeah, it's a calamity.
A calamity.
A
He's
calamity,
the regular calamity James. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, a
So
calamity. He uses exclamation points.
it's not as good as the pigeon, the
Roasting pigeons.
roasting the pigeons, but we'll talk about that another time. Okay. So I think just to this kind of cleaning up a couple of loose ends from last week, I think it's important. And further to that, is that I forget what I was going to say.
So let's get into the topic of the day.
Well, it's all related to the topic of the day.
All right, keep going then.
Well, what are you getting over there? This is good because you can see when we're picking things from the library. Okay. So, this expotency business, right? So if we say, like, if you're going to pick something apart, if you're going to develop a critically thought through argument, you have to sort of look at all facets of the question. So one would be, could harm be done? And I would say, is it going to be harmful? Well, only if the expotency contains too much of the material substance where a person is getting, a toxic load. That would be the problem. And in the case of what we talked about last week, if you didn't hear last week's episode, we referenced a product for sale on the market. It's for sale. It's distributed for sale through doctors. And this one particular of the 140 some products that this one company manufactures, there's one of them that has almost 80 different ingredients in it. Most of them in expotency, many of them heavy metals. And it is suggested to take this medicine 3 times a day, drops under the tongue 3 times a day, which would basically give a person almost 600 doses of different, substances in one day. And so we wanted to hear people's feedback on that. Okay. So in addition to that sort of potency being potentially material dose and all of that, there's this other part of it, which is sort of it's not even a conversation that Hahnemann would have been having. Like 600 doses in a day is like not a thing. But then, somebody asked me in a meeting once, in an advocacy meeting, well, what about over-the-counter cough medicine and so forth? And I thought, well, I don't have a problem with that. Like, if somebody buys like Chestol or I don't know if that's the name of it, but like one of those products, and it's got like 3 X things of different plant, like there's almost like elixirs that are used for a cough or whatever. I don't really have a problem with that. So I want to say that because I think it's important to be clear, like when one runs the risk of sounding really dogmatic, I think that what we're trying to do is to say,
dogmatic,
this is homeopathy. This is what it's intended to be. This is what we have the, information on. And everything else, if you are new to homeopathy, or maybe you are a homeopath, but when you went to school, nobody talked about things like this, then, we should know what it is that we're doing. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
On to the topic of the day.
Righty-ho.
Righty-ho.
So maybe, how about I introduce Dr. Joe?
Yeah, you could do that. You want to start there?
Why not?
Okay. I thought, okay, yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I met him a couple of times.
Okay, then that's good. Do you have a drink or
No,
a cup of tea?
no, he's French.
Okay, but he lives in New Zealand.
Yeah, New Plymouth, I think.
Okay, yeah, go on.
So anyway, back in the day, I'm going to say 25 years ago, Dr. Joe turns up at a conference and delivers a lecture, and delivered a kind of one of those, I would call it a Shilton lecture. It's one of those, oh, that's interesting. That's a long way away from Hahnemann.
Yeah.
One of those lectures. And what he was delivering was his extremely astute observation of the randomness, the seeming randomness of the potency scales that we use. Why on earth do we use 30, 200, 1M, 10M, like random numbers, when you can see that Hahnemann used Abramatum 84M, or Kent would have used Pulsatilla
So he acknowledged
32.
that in this initial.
Well, I think that's the way it's introduced, yeah. And so, like, how come? Firstly, how come? And then, isn't there a better system? And isn't there a more elegant system? And then what he did, he says, well, there is. And of course, it's the use of the golden mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the use of the Fibonacci numbers.
Mm.
And therefore applying the Fibonacci sequence and logic and elegance to the next remedy that's given as you're working with a client, presumably 4th and 5th edition of the Organon. So that was it, really. And it was kind of like one of those, gee, that's kind of interesting. And then
well, let's explore what's interesting about it, because the Fibonacci sequence I think is totally interesting. I mean, if you've got a weekend where you want to have a good time, start looking at the sacred geometry and the mathematical, all of the mathematical precedents in the human body and in nature, right? Fibonacci. I mean, I teach the Fibonacci sequence when I teach the periodic table to look at the numerical evolution of the predictive patterning and how this is a pattern that is replicated in nature. So you could see where if you just stop and go, that's so cool, I love that, it seems really interesting. So then again, if I like to talk about critical thinking as turning a prism. It's kind of like what we do when we're analyzing a case. You turn the prism and you look at it through each lens to determine the appropriate totality. Because at each turn, you can come up with a logic stream. So the Fibonacci sequence, if you're going to look at the way that it's used in homeopathic remedies, so it's either considered as a successive, like give the remedy in this succession, which goes against the randomness, the seeming randomness, because the way that we have pharmacy, I don't remember if we talked about this the last time, I don't think we did, but like the way that remedies are sold, like, if you're looking at the centesimal scale, 3, 6, 9, 12, 30, 200, 1M, 10M, 50M, CM, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, you can have a 47C. You can have a 201C. You can have a 568C. All of those are possible. And the standardization is basically like stocking a pharmacy and what gets called on. And it's arbitrary from a 20th century sort of convention of marketing, basically, right? And so in one way you could go, well, I guess that's logical to make those leaps, right?
And who made the leaps?
What's his name? Joe. What's his name? Rosen.
Oh, I
Right.
see. No. I'm sorry. Who made the conventional centesimal leaps?
Oh, it was done just through like pharmacy companies. It just kind of happened. Like there's nobody who made the dictate. There was no dictate.
Right.
That's what's so interesting about it. Okay, but then what happened was this Fibonacci idea, which I don't think is going to hurt anybody if you're saying, I'm going to go from this to that to the next, right? I'm going to go like the Fibonacci sequence is like 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 2 is 3, 2 + 3 is 5, and so on and so forth. This is approaching the golden ratio. You could go, okay, I mean, it's like fine, right? And interesting, and I could sort of get there, but like whatever. But it then got rolled in with this other thing called Homochord.
Stop right there.
Oh yeah.
So one of the interesting things for me is that both, let's call it, if you like, both systems of ascending potencies, the Fibonacci ascension essentially going 1, 2, 3, 5.
Mhm.
What's the next one?
8. 3 plus 5 is 8. Then 5 plus 8.
13.
Yep.
Right.
8 plus 13.
So it's good for business for the pharmacies because they've got to stock all of those potencies just in case somebody says, "Hi there, I'm going to prescribe Positilla 13 to my client." It's like totally legitimate. Like, why, it's just really, why would you make that clinical decision? But anyway, the pharmacies can do it because they are producing all of the steps and having a stock bottle on hand, and therefore it makes, kind of commercial sense that you might stock those.
I mean, and
the problem with it is that it's been absolutely demonstrably shown that there are, with different remedies, completely there are black holes in the ascension of potencies. If you go back to the days of the measurements of beta radiations from the plates when homeopathic remedies are different homeopathic remedies and potencies are put on them and photographed, or going with the very modern perspective of Stephen Cartwright doing his research with dyes and the influence of homeopathic remedies in dyes, which you can demonstrably show what the medicinal effect of that potency is. There's no such thing as an ascension at all. In fact,
Right.
it goes like a wave.
Yeah.
And
This
so
is the thing.
So 12C might be an effective potency as demonstrated by the photo, but 30C is nothing. Causticum 30 might be nothing or less effective than causticum 50, and 50 and 12 might actually be I'm going to use the wrong language, but live and more effective. So this idea of the ascension of potencies has been completely disproven
Yep.
by
Temporary sort of scientific evidentiary.
Yeah.
Scientific evidentiary basis.
And so I think for me, that kind of, and while I totally respect that you can use causticum 13 as a starting point, although why would you? The later science really questions the validity of both systems of thinking that something is getting more powerful because it's ascending and because you're increasing the potency.
Right. Because we're looking at vibration, and it's not a linear thing. And so, and this is where the question comes in. And I think one of the ways, well, we'll get to the homochord in a second, but like what's happening, I think the bucket that I would put all of this in is that there is an attempt to simplify and create two-dimensionality out of homeopathy, when in reality, there is a level of complexity to problem solving. And I don't think that that's bad. You know what I mean? Like, just because there are people out there who say, well, I had to get to protocols because I never could learn how to cure a cough using classical homeopathy. It's like, that's on you, sister. Like, that's not my problem. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's like, it does work in its methodology. And so like the way that we have to look at potency is not this sort of, ascending and descending sort of energetic pattern, but rather each of them vibrates at this level of intensity that is selected based on the vitality of the client, where they are in that moment on their healing journey. What can they tolerate? Some remedies are deeper than others. Like, there are all sorts. It's like it's trying to standardize something that is not standard. So then it goes to another step. Actually, starting where you wanted to start is smart, because if you
You look so surprised.
So then what happens is people go, well, I don't know what potency to choose. So let's put them all in. And that's what this homochord, it's either called homochord or homeochord, comes in. And it actually, it predates Fibonacci, which is why I was going to do it the other direction. But it didn't really take off until recently. But this came into it was a marketing thing in the early 1900s, and it's part of this movement that was referred to as German complex or German biological homeopathy. And it was just a marketing thing. So it was put a whole bunch of potencies into one dose or into one, remedy.
Same remedy.
Same remedy. Yeah. So different than what we talked about last time, which was 80 different remedies, each in multiple potencies.
In
right?
one bottle.
In one bottle. This would be as if single remedy prescribing. So here the conversation is just about the delivery. And so for people who maybe have only been exposed to like regular homeopathy, you might not have heard about this. Like I didn't hear about it until it became like social media influencers started putting this out there. And then it's like it catches on like a house on fire. But the idea is you put all of these remedies in, and then it supposedly, they're like the terms I found when I started to look for examples of this, that it amplifies and sustains, these are two of the words, the effect of the remedy. And I was just like, really? Okay. And it also, people claim that it lessens, like if you take all the potencies at once, it lessens the possibility of an aggravation. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, so this happens if you look at it, because you have to see everything in context, right? One of the things I love about studying history is this idea that you have to look at things like, who were the historical actors? What is the context of their time? What is happening in the business world of the time? So this happens contingently with pharmaceutical industrialization of homeopathy. Okay. So at this point, once you get into this industrialization, you could do all sorts of things and market them. And so it's a marketing thing. Okay. And so it's,
Who by?
sorry. Oh, Heal Pharmacy. I was surprised by that.
So Heal, as in the German,
Yeah. As far as I can,
giant
Yep.
manufacturing pharmacy, probably I'm going to say that in terms of the same size, same as Boron, although Boron probably has a
more
larger
distribution.
and a larger public perspective, especially in these parts.
Yeah.
But Heal remedies are ubiquitous in Europe,
Yeah.
over the counter and professionally prescribed.
So if you look at this, you go, okay, so what we have is
also well researched. Because one of the great pieces of research into a named condition using homeopathy is using a Heal product.
Yeah.
For fibromyalgia.
So what becomes very interesting then is that you've got a reputable manufacturer who is selling something, because that's their job, is to make money. Their job isn't to necessarily uphold Hahnemannian standards. It's, if you're a pharmacy, then you need to make the medicines in accordance with sort of best practice, like don't have rat poop in your medicine.
Correct.
Like
bad,
right. But it doesn't say don't do things that aren't according to the principles and practice of homeopathy. Right? I mean,
what else have you discovered there?
Well, I mean, I just want to say that those two things go. So then you have this convergence of two modern ideas, so Fibonacci mathematical sequence and homochord now come together to make Fibonacci homochord, which is now you have two made up things together. It's like Reese's peanut butter cups. Did you have that commercial where you got like two things that taste great together? You got chocolate and peanut butter, and like there are two people, and one has chocolate, one has peanut butter. They smash into each other, and they go, "Oh, that's delicious."
That's ridiculous, because the only thing that goes
well
with peanut butter is butter,
which is the most bizarre thing. I can't get with that. Anyway, this is sort of the opposite, because it's made up. So that's fine, right? So what is the evidence for this? I mean, pretty anecdotal. And right now, and I think this is really important.
Actually, it's all anecdotal.
It is anecdotal.
I've not seen. There's not one piece of research. It would be possible to do, but no one's done it.
And
Let's look at the outcomes.
well, I have to say that I never want to rule out that something could be effective.
Totally.
But you have to look at it like not just like I had this one hit.
Yeah.
It's over time, because this is the thing is that this goes completely against. It's not just like, oh, this is adjacent to what Hahnemann did. It goes 100% against the recommended usage for these medicines. So, because the thing is that if you are prescribing a homeopathic remedy, the most important thing that you have to do is measure the outcome, because the outcome from the prescription that you have made is what influences the second prescription, which is the most important prescription of all. Second prescription being the one after the first remedy has acted, right?
Correct.
You can't do that if you have 185 messages going in. And it really moves away from like everything that homeopathy is about, right? So it moves away from single remedy. Well, I suppose you could say single remedy, but I think inherent in single remedy is single potency.
Well, Fibonacci in and of itself is just a single remedy.
Oh yeah, if you're not talking about homeopathy, yeah, but then it takes away from individuality that says the assessment of the vitality of the person, and therefore their capacity to get a healing response from the medicine, right? Because I'm afraid you're going to land that on my toe, and I don't have a shoe on.
That's right.
I've moved my feet over here. I don't know if you're not watching this on video, you don't see that he's leaning back. But I'm afraid that
risk management.
I'm managing my toe. If I had a shoe on, I might have a different conversation with you. Anyway, so I hope that that's helpful to the person who wrote in from New Zealand. And the other thing I want to say though is, because I find that like something like the Fibonacci sequence is amazing, right? And anytime that we can find predictive patterning in nature, or we look at sacred geometry, or, I was doing this piece of research years ago, and I was looking into the Sauric triad. Okay.
Oh.
So do you remember this? This was a long time ago.
No.
Sauric triad. So Hahnemann introduces, this idea of the underlying miasmatic basis of disease. And so in the Sauric triad, you have 3 different remedies considered to be the core of the Sauric miasm. So you have sulfur, you have calcarea carbonicum, and you have lycopodium. And so depending on the perspective you use, again, turn your prism and look at it. One of the things that I find interesting is that you've got a mineral, sulfur, you've got a plant, lycopodium, and then you've got calcarb, which technically in this case is an animal, because Hahnemann chose to take the calcium from the oyster shell, not from, general. Yeah, he could have just used another substance, which then sort of puts out there a very interesting idea, which is that this is that solving a problem in homeopathy, like let me think about how to say this simply. I often will ask myself, what was Hahnemann trying to do? People always say, well, what would Hahnemann do? I kind of think not so much about what would he do, but rather what was he thinking as he was trying to figure out what to do? Because if we can understand that, then the holes in the philosophical paradigm, we then know where to look, right? And I think that if we want to give homeopathy the credence of being the most incredible system of medicine, you don't just get handed it. Hahnemann says, I have to find the quote where he says, don't put pearls before swine. It's in that first edition small Organon, in one of the lesser writings. I'm sure I could find it by asking a chatbot or whatever. Anyway, but so here we've got this situation where Hahnemann's looking at 3 different substances, ostensibly to say, and again, this is me thinking, but that there is this harmony of the elemental energies between the plant, the animal, and the mineral kingdom, that when they are sort of in harmony, then you can affect that psoriatic miasmatic disease. So as opposed to just like one, like the Samila mythology, find the soulmate in nature, but rather, because Hahnemann sits on this, he straddles Hippocratic medicine and biomedicine. And so was he asking questions about sort of the satisfying of the elemental balance, right? I kind of love that. And then you can take this further and you can look at provings for like through lines in proving. So I'll give an example there. A proving I was involved in, the hell proving, it was Armageddon proving, was wild rice, Zizania palestris, I think is the botanical term. And there was a symptom that a lot of us had, which was a burnt sensation on the tongue, right? It felt like, when you eat pizza and you burn, like you eat soup too fast and your tongue is burnt. And a whole bunch of people had that symptom. And another symptom that a bunch of people had was seeing birds. I had this. I was recently reading my proving notes from that. It was back in 2007. And I was like, I kept looking for a bird, and others had this. Anyway, I was working on a case some time ago, and one of the remedies that I was reading about was Cygnus cygnus, the swan remedy. And in that remedy, there is the symptom of the burnt sensation on the tongue. The exact same thing. The place where the wild rice was gathered for the proving, that wild rice that was gathered in my canoe, by the way. Yeah, I had loaned it or given it actually at that point. Anyway, but swans migrate there. Seems totally random until you see that there's this funny through line in the provings. Now, I don't have evidence of a million of those, but I think that when we start looking at homeopathy, instead of looking superficially at, A plus B equals C, that if you're going to get to the highest level of cure, then the questions are not, you don't make a remedy decision based on that, but you can start to understand the paradigm or the philosophy through something like that. Did that make sense, or was that too much in one gulp?
I'm where I went was what's the mineral analog
for
burnt tongue.
Oh, interesting. It would be interesting to look at that. And so it's like we find breadcrumbs and clues to help us. So on one hand, I wanted to say that because I think sometimes I'll speak for myself, not for you, but I come across as being like, like dogmatic, Hahnemannian rules and stuff. But Hahnemann was an alchemist. He was asking questions that were so far beyond what we can fathom that every time I come across something where you might see another dimension to the pattern, you can ask a question. But the most important thing is, do you then act on it? So this guy, Joe Rosenzweig, has an idea about Fibonacci, and then, like a game of telephone, different people interpret it. Next thing you know, you dump the whole Fibonacci sequence into a bucket of some SAR code for which there is no proving at all, and you tell people to take it multiple times a day for an extended period of time. Well, that's a leap from saying, isn't it interesting that in these two provings, there are these two symptoms and there's a relationship between those substances? How can we think about that going forward? Is there, for example, some sort of a hint or a clue when you're looking at the progression, that aphorism 171, right after the remedy is acted? I think that those are like fascinating questions to ask. Would that inform a clinical decision for a child who has, encephalitis? No. Those are right. The decision you make when you're in the clinic chair, and the decision, and the conversation that you're having when you're trying to think something through to see, can I understand this? And then does it play through in a reproducible way? And then you test it to see if that's going to actually help people. That's the disconnect that we've got.
It is actually, because there's so much of the second, the latter,
Oh my gosh,
happening in our profession.
so much.
And then I don't know. I don't think I've ever been influenced really by much that's gone on at a conference, but we certainly hear that people hear about these ideas that are delivered and suddenly go
Oh.
away and start practicing on their
Sometimes,
kids.
do you remember when we would come back from the conference and we'd have to say to the students, okay, let's have a sit down and go through, like, what did you hear? Hahnemann is thinking so diligently and clearly and cleanly about how to deliver these medicines, right? So, like, the whole thing is rapid and gentle cure, right? And so, rapid and gentle being relative terms, and cure being relative too, because cure in a person that doesn't have access to the complete eradication of a chronic disease is the highest level of health attainable, right?
Mhm.
But like he's trying to figure out going, getting himself all the way to the sixth and final edition of the Organon with a 50 millesimolar potency, how to deliver the remedies in such a way as to not create an aggravation. It's a total opposite of this throw it all in a cup and down the hatch.
Mm.
Because what could you possibly do with that? How could you evaluate? You're making an assumption. It's an allopathic assumption, right? Because you're prescribing typically based on one small subset of symptoms, or usually a named condition. A lot of the times people who are using these kinds of things are prescribing on a named condition. And then they give like a boatload of this, soup. And then they go, is it better or not? And one of the challenges, one of the things that I see when people come and they go, I had to stop doing that. It's like, well, what happened? I just don't feel good. That is a giveaway because that's what suppression is about, isn't it? Because suppression is the disappearing of a symptom or a small subset of symptoms, but you lose your overall health status. So you might feel overall worse, right? So the whole point in the after you give a remedy, is the evaluation of the action of the remedy.
So you're saying that is the, well, let's say, disadvantage of the use of anything other than a single remedy, including the Homochords. And Fibonacci, from your point of view, it's kind of interesting, but
Well, I
as a sequence.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me homeopathically as a sequence. First of all, if you're just looking at something through the lens of that, the Fibonacci sequence is based on this sort of it's like it's a two-dimensional thing that you're applying, right? You're just creating the golden mean. So, okay, that's totally fine, but it doesn't take into account the pharmacodynamic alteration of a substance. It doesn't take into account how that interacts with the client's individual susceptibility.
Mm.
It doesn't take into account the strength of the disease, doesn't take into account the miasmatic presentation.
Does traditional 4th edition sequencing do that?
Well, that's why Hahnemann moved away from it.
Mm.
So traditional 4th edition sequencing would be,
so you're no fan.
Doesn't wait.
Yeah, so you're no fan of 3200 1N 10N.
It's kind of bonkers to me.
Mm.
I remember I had this client.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I had a homeopath who was I had a client who was a homeopath.
There's an answer.
And he had the remedy that was really helpful for him was Aurum. And so, and all homeopaths are difficult clients, right? And they self-prescribe and not that any of us would ever do anything like that. Bring your homeopath a repertorization and say, is this okay with you? I know I've never done
I want
that.
to take this.
Anyway, but he was doing really well on 200C, but I was a little worried because he was like, this was years ago, so I would have been more inclined to a centesimal posology, but he was like, should I take a 1M? And I was like, no. I mean, this was a person who had like, serious depression issues, like challenges. And I thought, well, gosh, no. And I said, well, how about if we take an interim step? Let's go with, 500C. And he was like, you can do that?
Right.
Yeah.
You can do that?
You can.
Pharmacy's got it?
Yeah, they've got it.
Yeah.
So I would encourage any of you, like, go to Helios or go to Hahnemann Labs, go to the, as if you're shopping for a remedy, and then just pull up a remedy and then look at all the potencies that are available. And you can see that, there are options.
Oh yeah. At the commercial end, there's a bunch of randomness to what's available for sure. Really interesting.
So,
Good.
like, if we just grab a couple of aphorisms, I was like just picking a few that are posology or related. So, like 275.
I
Where
like
would you have gone?
275.
You like 275?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So 275, the appropriateness of a medicine for a given case of disease does not rest on its apt homeopathic selection alone,
Nope.
but also on the necessary correct size of its dose.
Yep.
A medicine given in an all too strong dose for a given case of disease, even if the medicine is completely homeopathic to the case and in itself of a beneficial nature, will still damage the patient as a result of its size and the too strong impression it makes on the life force, on precisely those parts of the organism that are already the most sensitive and the most attacked by the natural disease. So that's aphorism 275 in the 6th edition of the Organon. Just with that, how could you do a homochord?
How could you?
How could one do it? I mean, you basically have to say, if you're going to do that, that you're abandoning
Well,
this, no?
yeah, I think so. How could you do it? I can see how it happens
Mm,
because you're listening to some charismatic teacher, and the charismatic teacher says, "This is my experience." That's generally rhetoric,
sure.
and
Very
maybe
low on the evidence hierarchy.
but beyond off the evidence
In the
hierarchy.
basement of the evidence hierarchy.
I love it.
I do too,
In the
actually.
basement of the basement.
Of the basement.
And and so we all do it. We've got to entertain our students every now and again. But rhetoric and n equals 1 stories are the poorest evidence for making a statement. And therefore, I would simply just suggest it otherwise. Is like, show me the.
So
You've got some stories you want to tell me about this? Then show me.
well,
But
you just go on Instagram.
no. I'm not interested in the stories. I want to see the evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because right now, what's happening, and I don't know who these people are, but the folks in our
do the study.
The folks who kind of are
Show me
bringing us information, which we get from a lot of people, get like these screenshots sent to us of people who are saying that they've quote unquote cured these like really deep and complex cases using these, throw all the remedy, all the potencies in, and then they're calling it a cured case in, weeks before the first follow-up.
a little early.
I mean, how many of you, like, I think we really have to think about this, because like if one could truly, by throwing a whole bunch of the stuff into a cup or into a vial, and you give it to someone and like all of their challenges melt away, we'd all be doing it. The allopaths would be doing it. The allopaths would be the first to do it because it's completely allopathic prescribing.
Well, we've all got 5% of those cases, but we don't. And I've never met a homeopath that had more than that.
So let's say here, because we're talking about like if you give too large a dose, because there's this other thing. Okay, so one of the things we didn't add in about posology is that my friend Kent,
James.
JT. So one of the things that happened with Kent and some of the sort of post-Kentian, sort of the spiritualists, prescribers, is that this idea that the high doses, that the high potencies are spiritually attuned and the low potencies are more material. I mean, yes, the low potencies are more material. There's no question about that.
Correct.
But
that's what he said.
That's what he said.
Uh-huh.
And so Hahnemann, though, says...
Never made much sense to me.
Sorry?
Never made much sense to me.
No, it's about the resonance and the resonance of the disease. Like a 6C can be just as bad as a...
I think you see it in approving more than anything else.
Those about that.
Well, those provings are generally done. Doesn't matter what which guidelines you're using, but it's these days 30C is the go-to point for approving, and the amount of drama that occurs after a 30C in a healthy person on the physical plane, the emotional plane, the mental plane, the spiritual realms. It's astronomical.
Totally. I mean, the proving that I was talking about early, I can't remember. I think I had a 200C, but it might have been a 30. But in this proving, there was placebo for control, but then there was 6. I think it was 6, 12, 30, and 200. I don't know that there was a 1M.
Yes.
Anyway, but I mean, you can have a response at any level. Anyway,
what are you going to read now?
Well, 276.
Oh,
Why not?
Well, that's logical.
There, right? So for this reason, a medicine that is homeopathically appropriate to a given case of disease, but that is given in too large a dose, does much more damage than an equally large dose of a medicine that is allopathic to the disease. What? In strong doses, the more homeopathic the medicine is to the disease state, and the higher its potency, the more damage it will do, much more than an equally large dose of a medicine that is unhomeopathic, bearing no relation to the disease state, i.e., that is allopathic to the disease state.
Mm.
So I guess these people that are prescribing allopathically, maybe that's how they're getting away with it,
Right.
because they're just doing an allopathic prescription. They're not working, right? As a rule, all too large doses of an apt homeopathically selected medicine give rise to great misfortune, especially if these too large doses are frequently repeated. How about them apples? Not seldom they endanger the patient's life or make his disease almost incurable. Too large doses certainly do extinguish the natural disease for the feeling of the life principle. The patient suffers no more from the original disease from the moment the all too strong dose of the homeopathic medicine acts upon him, but the patient is then more strongly sick from the quite similar, only far more violent medicinal disease, which is very difficult to expunge. This is what we see when we get these cases of people who have come in who have been seeing these, the people who are just trained to give like the high potencies because it's a spiritual dose and it's not going to do anything. It's like, well, yes, it does. And then to get them back. Anyway, so then he goes on in 277, he's talking about a well dynamized medicine, giving it in small appropriate doses. And then he goes on more to talk about how do you choose the best size of the dose? And I think that's what's really important. Like, if by the time you get to the 6th edition and the 50 millesimal potency, right? You've got Hahnemann working with, first of all, moving away from the centesimal, right? 1 to 100 ratio. So if we're talking about that compared to decimal, then you've got 1 to 10, 1 to 100. And he's like, well, he never did 1 to 10. But then he goes, oh, actually, we're
Too strong.
1 to 100, too strong. I'm going to move to 1 to 50,000. The medicaments globule. And and that is because you have less succussion, more water to minimize the harshness of the dose, the energetic message to the person when they're on this healing journey. So I suppose at the end of the day, like marketing and now social media and people who they're like literally just saying, well, yeah, I've done this and I got it. Well, we need not only do we need studies, we need longitudinal studies to find out what happens when you're administering multiple potencies, multiple remedies in a short period of time to know what they do. Because one of the things that I've heard a number of times recently is people say it all seemed good for a while. I told you about that one case, that woman, she said her kid was good for like 6 months. Maybe it was even longer, maybe a year. I don't know. And the prescribing was not as crazy as some of the stuff that we've talked about. But then the wheels fall off the bus. Well, I want to give some thought to sort of why that happens.
Right.
But anyway, I guess at the end of the day, if you act according to principle, you're good. Right? I mean, like we said last time, when's the last time you, other than like an aggravation, saw someone harmed by homeopathy? Never.
When was the last time I saw an aggravation?
No, other than an aggravation, up until 3 years ago, had you ever seen someone harmed by homeopathy?
Just that story in the news in 2005.
But that was not the homeopathy, as the judge said. That was the hubris.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right?
Yeah, good point. So, no.
Right. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, we're not
Good discussion.
Yeah, and it's not for us to make a judgment, right? But we're educators, and our job is to get people thinking. Because remember, this season 4 is about truth, and it's about getting us all to like ask these questions, to critically think about what we do, because if we all get good at it and we do it well, we can bring homeopathy back to its rightful place in medicine. The more we dilute without succussion, right? The more we move away from what we know to be sort of safe and appropriate homeopathy, then the harder it is for us to really, I don't know, to do that. Right. So if we had to say, like, people talk about these new ways of using complex homeopathy as being innovation, I would say it's the opposite, honestly. It's like it's taking like it's replacing like method and understanding of philosophy with marketing, right? It's taking away precision prescribing. And in order to make it easy, like, you don't have to study as hard to figure out the reaction. You just have a scattershot approach, right? It's removing clinical responsibility with salesmanship. God forbid, to go online and say, I've, cured all these people. Could you imagine? First of all, I would feel like the minute I did that, I would be punished by God.
Right.
I can't imagine. So,
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, we're creating.
It's interesting, actually, because it's very allopathic.
It's totally allopathic.
And it comes, and why, and that brings it right into conflict with practicing medicine without a license.
Well, yeah, because it's totally, they're using named conditions. Like, there are people who are literally saying on social media, I cured, I'm a first semester student and I've cured a case of whatever serious disease with this made up way of giving homeopathic remedies.
It's a bit early, isn't it?
I'm scared.
Don't be
Anyway,
scared. Don't be scared. It's okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I know. But we just want people to, like, let's protect the medicine. If you teach it, let's teach the truth. If you practice it really well. And if there's a fad or a falsehood, if there's a fad, it's like, I love a good fad, but I don't love a good fad in medicine. Think about, like, all the medicines. Think about, like, thalidomide. Seemed like a great idea at the time, right? Anyway, so we need to support the educators and the institutions who uphold the Organon, who are upholding the integrity of the method. We need to, like, save ourselves from ourselves. We need real homeopathy, not, I don't know, stuff like that.
Something that isn't.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm excited that you're going to make something exciting tomorrow.
I'm going to make crepes.
Yep. So we started talking about food. Let's end talking about food. Tomorrow we're having a second Thanksgiving, and it's every year we do a cousin's Thanksgiving, and we're doing the way that our grandmother did Thanksgiving, except for the turkey course, because no one ate the turkey because we were too full. So there's, like, the whole antipasto, and then this soup, and then lasagna and meatballs en braciole, and and all the attending and other things. But this soup I'm really excited about, because I never heard anybody else talk about this particular way that we had. It's kind of like a combination of Italian wedding soup and like escarole soup, but it has a crepe in the bottom. And I was looking up, trying to find a recipe for this, because my grandmother's recipes, I have her recipe cards, and they basically have no amounts. It'll say, like, flour, and then it'll say add an egg. It's like, so but
So we need to practice.
we have to practice, because it turns out that this is it's a soup that is very specific to the region in Abruzzi, where my maternal grandfather came from. And so I'm really excited about this.
So we got things to do.
Yeah.
All right. See you, folks.
See you, everybody.
Take care.
Are you suffering from an acute illness and need relief? Welcome to Homeopathy Help Now, your virtual clinic for accessible homeopathy care right from home. From flu symptoms to stomach bugs, minor injuries to surgery support, we provide natural and effective solutions for acute health concerns. You can meet with a homeopath online and receive personalized acute care safely and conveniently. Homeopathy works with your body to restore balance quickly and gently. Book your session today at homeopathyhelpnow.com. Got a packed schedule, but still dreaming of becoming a homeopath? AHE's part-time professional program brings real-time classes, live clinical training, and a full professional curriculum, all 100% online. It's rigorous. It's legit. And yes, it's built for people who have jobs, kids, lives, and a whole lot of ambition. Start your journey to licensure without hitting pause on your life. Visit ahe.online and take the first step.